Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm pleased today to be joined by Jennifer Williams, President and CEO of Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, and Craig Martin, Associate Deputy Minister for Energy. We are here today to announce the finalization of the rate mitigation plan with Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. Now, as many here today would know, the Muskrat Falls plant was commissioned in November 2021, and the Labrador Island Link was commissioned in April 2023. Since that time, Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro has become responsible for paying the cost of these Lower Churchill project facilities upon the commissioning at a cost of approximately $740 million annually. And I say that again for people that may be watching, $740 million annually. We have worked with Hydro to finalize this rate mitigation plan, but at the same time as we did that, we have supported customer rates by paying off the deferral account. Now, as publicly communicated, in July of 2021, the rate mitigation plan targeted Newfoundland and Labrador hydro rate increases for domestic customers not to exceed 2.25% per year up to and including 2030. Without rate mitigation, rates would have almost doubled, 23.6 cents per kilowatt. I am pleased today to announce that we are maintaining that commitment. The plan will come into effect on July 1st of 2024 and will ensure domestic residential rate increases are capped at 2.25% annually for cost recovery associated with the Muskrat Falls project. This plan applies only to island customers paying for the project. As a result of the implementation of our government's rate mitigation plan, on an average monthly bill of $300, customers will pay $307 a month in July 2024, compared to the $500 per month they would have paid without rate mitigation. So that's $193 less per month, or $2,300 during the period of July 24 to June of 25. The total projected investment required from Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro to fund this stage of the rate mitigation plan is over $2 billion, including the final projections up to and including 2030. This includes retirement of the 2023 deferral account balance of $271 million. It is unfortunate that we are in this situation as a province as a result of the Muskrat Falls project, and that this amount of money has to be spent to mitigate rates. However, finalizing this plan today provides certainty on Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro's annual electricity rate increases associated with the cost of Muskrat Falls up to and including 2030. Now, I must note that through the normal regulatory process, the PUB may approve additional rate changes resulting from a Newfoundland Power general rate application, rate stabilization, or a municipal tax account, or other adjustments that aren't related to Muskrat Falls. Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro produces the electricity needed to serve all customers in the province and distributes power directly to 24,000 customers on the island. Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro's largest customer is Newfoundland Power, who in turn distribute that power that they get from Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro to an additional 275,000 customers on the island. Now, before I turn things over to Jennifer, I want to state that obviously our government recognizes that many people are facing challenges and continue to face challenges, and that obviously all electricity customers continue to be concerned about rates. But we remain committed to rate mitigation over the long term, and today's announcement finalizes rate mitigation and provides clarity up to and including 2030. This is a massive step forward in providing certainty to the hundreds of thousands of Newfoundlanders that would have faced doubling of their rates because of Muskrat Falls. Again, before I turn it to Jennifer, I do want to say a very big thank you to the staff in IET that have worked on this, finance, JPS, Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, the Premier's office. These are extremely complicated things and it requires a significant amount of work. So I want to thank those who are not up on this stage but took part in coming to this, this agreement today. And on that note, Ms. Williams.
Okay, thank you, Minister. I am pleased to be with you all here today for this announcement. We know that customers are very concerned about electricity rates. Our customers make that very clear to us. and we are doing our best to address those concerns. It's why we've been working very closely with the province, as the Minister just noted, for several years to ensure rates would not double when the project was commissioned. As the Minister noted, together with actions taken to date, this plan now limits any rate increases associated with the Muskrat Falls project to 2.25% annually from now through 2030. This rate will also include Hydro's other costs. The portion customers pay in 2024 is less than 10% of the annual cost of the Muskrat Falls project as a result of this plan. And the rates are some of the lowest in Atlantic Canada. But we do understand that rising costs for almost everything in the province is a concern for people. And we've worked very hard to cut our costs, and will continue to do so, and do our part to support government's rate mitigation efforts. I am pleased to advise that under this plan, Hydro will fund rate mitigation through our own earnings and operations, through foregone dividends. We know our customers expect that of us. Between now and 2030, Hydro will invest more than $2 billion to mitigate customer rates, benefiting all island customers. I know that together, we've experienced many challenges with the project, and I regularly hear from people wondering if that thing will ever work. And I want to reiterate for people of the province that the Muskrat Falls project has been commissioned and is in full operation. Not only is it in operation, but it is operating efficiently. And as a result, we continue to increase the percentage of renewable energy used by customers. We are now above 90% from renewable sources supplying customers in this province. At Holyrood, an important part of the reliability picture, all units are now offline for the spring-summer season. This is the earliest time that we've taken the units offline, and it is partially due to the availability of Muskrat and the Labrador Island Link. I'm also happy to report that we have repaid Emera materially the outstanding block of energy that they were owed as a result of project delays. Just another little bit left to go. All of this points to the fact that despite the challenges we've experienced, the assets are operating effectively, and they are now the people's assets. This has put Hydro, your crown utility, in a position to become profitable and in turn offset the costs of Muskrat Falls. Thank you, Minister, and thank you to your team, as you noted, and the Hydro team for their commitment in making this right for customers. We truly appreciate all the hard work that went into finalizing this plan. Thank you.
And on that note, we'll open it up for any questions. I don't think there will be, though, but we'll
I have a question about timelines. So this is the plan, but you still have to get the plan approved by the pub by July 1st?
So how that will work is that we will take the direction from government. So they've made that very clear and very firm. They've made that as a government. And we will take that information and we will apply to the Public Utilities Board. And it's very clear. It is very clear direction that we believe should be successful at the regulator in time for July 1st.
This is 2.25% annual cap. So we could be looking at a 2.25% increase each year for the next?
No, so under this, the max would be 2.25 per year every year. So this wouldn't double up on that or anything like that. As it relates to Muskrat Falls, it's capped at 2.25% annually.
An increase, 2.25% increase?
Yes, as opposed
Yes.
to substantially higher without the money that was put into this.
I'm just wondering if you could apply for the 2.25% July 1st, 2024, and then again on July 1st, 2025, on top of what, right? So
Yes,
then-
that's correct.
Yes,
so
that's
then in
correct.
2025, we're
In order
looking
to cap it at 2.25%, it's costing us $740 million. So yes, we would, next year, to cap it at 2.25% again, another increase, we have to spend another $740 million just to deal with this project.
So by 2030, if the increase annually is
Yep.
2.25, the customer will see it, I think it's over 13%.
So there's a couple things there I think I need to point out, and Jennifer could probably jump in on something a little more technical. With doing this, we are still lower than the other Atlantic provinces. Every province, every state is facing electricity and power challenges. It's an international issue, that I can tell you. What we have done here, though, is found a way to cap this particular issue. Now, in 6 years, who knows where we will be? There's a lot of things that may happen in that duration. We have to look at other possibilities, power development. We have to look at what other technologies that are out there. Do we find different ways to provide power to customers? But yes, one of the biggest challenges we have as any government anywhere, is that we are looking at increasing power costs. And I can tell you from meetings anywhere, every person who's in a leadership or governance role is facing this down.
I guess for the ratepayer, they just wanna know what they are going to see on their bill. So I mean, and the 2.25 is the figure we're all gonna use today, but I'm wondering, when 2030 comes, what sort of impact versus today could the ratepayer see on their bill? Are we looking at over 13% increase?
I would suggest-
To pay off the
right.
Muskrat costs?
I don't know of any utility that is doing rate planning 6 years out. So every utility would have to have recurring periods of time where they choose to set rates. So we can't say today, and I don't think any utility can say today what rates are going to be 6 years out. And because so many things change and so many factors will impact whatever that is at that time. So the message today is that there's a 6-year clarity of exactly what customers can expect and plan for with regards to the costs of hydro, which includes Muskrat Falls costs.
I guess with any luck by 2030, then we'll have to start paying off combustion turbines maybe, or
2030 is a fairly long period of time away. There's so many things that we can speculate about or hypothesize about, but we don't know. But knowing where we are for the next 6 years, I think is a really big step forward. Finding the means to pay that, I think is a very big step forward. And look, nobody can provide a crystal ball on where this world, this province, or any of us are going to be in 6 years' time. But providing some form of clarity in this regard is certainly a positive, very positive step forward.
Minister, there's a couple of ways that individual people in the province are affected by what's happening here. You're moving money around. Part of it is rates. I'm talking about what's going to happen to customers, electricity customers individually. But the other piece is the public coffers and what the government has, in hand that it can actually work with year to year. And I'm wondering, can you split or give some sense of the effect on the public treasury by what we've arranged here versus what's happening with hydro and rates? Like, what is it that the government is going to essentially be swallowing right now?
It's probably a better question for Minister Cody when you get right down to it, especially when you go into budgeting and, like you say, moving money around. Right now, we're dealing with federal rate mitigation. We're talking about hydro funds, and yes, at the end of the day, we're talking about foregoing dividends, money into our treasury that would be used for a number of things. So the best number I can use is that it's $740 million less for us to use as a province that we could be putting into the issues we deal with every day. And every day I'm in that house, and every day I'm getting asked about housing and healthcare and helping individuals with disabilities. And what I can say is that it's $740 million less that we have to use to help provide for these services. So yes, there's a hell of a lot of things we would like to be doing, but we were not given the decision to do that. That was the decision that was left to us that we have had to assume when we finally come to a good place, because it could have been worse. Could have been a situation where every ratepayer in this province was paying double. We've managed to mitigate that. So that's what I'm using. That's what frustrates me from when I'm in a budgetary point of view, when we're looking at the money we want to spend to invest in tech companies and the money we want to put into, out in rural Newfoundland and Labrador, and we have less. Got to make do. And yeah, it's frustrating.
The $740 million figure, though, my understanding is, the government is getting the net profit interest, from Hibernia, that there is mechanisms.
That's going into the public treasury. Yes, and it's being spent. But I don't see anybody talking about the fact that our healthcare costs continue to increase exponentially. All of our obligations continue to increase. We're also not getting what the other Atlantic provinces who are talking about surpluses get from equalization. We don't have that. So yes, that we had the net profit interest. We were extremely lucky that decisions were made decades ago as it relates to Hibernia, but that's also going into a pot that we still spend more than what we take in. And at the same time that we have an increased request for services for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
So if one of your constituents stopped you at the grocery store and said, layman's terms, what does this mean for my electricity?
Okay, so here's what I would say. July 1st, without this, you would go from $300 to $500. But because of what we've done, you'll pay an extra $7. That's what I would say to my citizen. This is what we've done today, which is why it is so positive. I might sound a little frustrated here because I'm talking about the budget side of things, but this is a massive step forward, a $7 increase. Look, and don't get me wrong, this is not to, not say that we're facing, because the first thing we talk about when we go in a grocery store is the cost of living, is the cost of goods. But I tell you what, $193 extra on that monthly bill is certainly appreciated. An extra almost $2,500 a year will be appreciated in that fight that we're facing again nationally on cost of living.
Jennifer, you brought this up in the briefing, but we're on the record now. If we have a cap on rates, why have a general rate application at all?
Is there a question?
Yeah.
So why? You're asking me
Yeah.
why? Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why we would want to have a general rate application, even if you have the rates for hydro predetermined, is that hydro needs to be still held accountable for its operations. We still need to be held accountable for the decisions that we make, how we run our business. And that's what a general rate application is meant to achieve, and we welcome that. And that will hopefully occur in the next year or two, where folks can really open up the books and the interveners will really challenge us on how we're operating these days.
Minister Parsons, you mentioned that the savings of $193 on the bills, you see, for $300 or $300. Was that uncertain before today? I mean, we knew there was an agreement.
No, so I wouldn't say it was uncertain prior to today. We've talked about this was our goal since July of 21 to get to here. But when you look back at sort of the genesis of this, going back to before we were even in government in 2015 leading up to here, until you get the deal done, until you get the intricacies figured out and put everything together, and even the fact that Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro's position has changed. I mean, look at Muskrat itself as an asset. You know, we had to wait to get that done, and even then, I'm sure Jennifer could talk better than me, the challenges that we have faced here. So until you get everything done and signed off, yes, there's still some uncertainty, but this was our goal, and today we've achieved that, and now, you know, now I can say until things are done, they're not done, well, now they're done.
This deal goes until 2030. What are the variables that you'll be looking at over the next couple of years in terms of the next plan beyond 2030?
I can jump in, Minister, there. So the things that are I'll call it the power system evolution and changes that are happening, as the Minister said, it's happening in every jurisdiction. And it's related to electrification. So basically taking things that we use, I'll call it fossil fuel-based sources for, and they're going on to electricity-based sources. Cars, home heating, some industrial processes. That shift is changing. I'm sure a lot of folks would understand that. Some folks have made those changes themselves. They can see it across the country. The question around it is, what are the sources that we need to put in place to have that electricity supply to deal with that increase in supply, increase in electricity demand? And then, obviously, as folks move over to electricity, they're stopping using the sources, you know, the getting less fuel delivered to the home. I'm one of those. I have less fuel. I'm not using fuel for my house now. People are choosing electric cars. So those fuel sources are going to go down. Electricity needs to go up. So that's the really big change that's coming. And that is, how do we deal with that? How fast is it coming? What are the sources that the public expects us to put in place? You go into a grocery store, and there's folks that don't want certain kind of sources in place. We can see that some people don't like wind, some people don't like combustion turbines, some people don't like hydroelectricity. So those are the big challenges, I think, for the next 6 to 8 years is growth is going up, how fast is it coming, what is the right source, and then getting it in place. Because going back to the national view, everybody's electrifying. And so there's almost like a run on transformers, right? So everybody is lining up across this country to order their transformers. As we take our time getting to some of those decisions, you could be at the back of the line, and it could be even longer to get those supply sources in place. So that is, I think, the biggest factor in what's going to change between today and 2030. We're really at the very beginning of this transition. By the time 2030 comes around, I think the whole landscape of the electricity sector is going to be radically different.
The 2.25% is strictly for Muskrat Falls,
Yes.
correct? So if your wholesale rate needs to change above and beyond that next year, you could need to apply for 3%. Like, if you have to pay extra towards a combustion turbine. Can you just explain that a little bit? This is strictly Muskrat. Like, we could be looking at, it's not a 2.25 cap on rates for next year.
Well, it is a 2.25% cap on hydro's costs. So if hydro somehow had a combustion turbine and we were building it today and it went in service in next January, that's when you normally would put things in rates, is when it's commissioned. So if that was happening now, that would go into our costs, but government, through this plan, has said all of Hydro's costs, whether they're Muskrat-related or Muskrat and Legacy Hydro-related costs, or even Hydro's costs over the next number of years, all of that is capped at 2.25%. All of it is capped for all of Hydro's costs, no matter what happens for the next 6 years, and that is in an order in council. It does not take into account any other costs that might naturally occur. Rate stabilization would be one, any process that Newfoundland Power has to go through for their processes. This is just related to Muskrat Falls, but also Hydro's other costs is absolutely included in the cap.
That
So you'll
includes
have to-
Beta Spare and Hurricane.
Beta Spare, and yep, exactly, all of those. The transmission line, we have our own distribution customers, obviously, so it includes all of Hydro's costs as well.
So there'll likely be some deferral over the next few years of some costs.
Well, not necessarily a deferral, and I'm looking back at my regulatory team, so I'm going to try this, and hopefully it's okay. It won't necessarily be a deferral, but how the $740 million will be addressed on an annual basis is less than 10% is going to be recovered in rates. So this year, in existing rates, customers are paying about $44 million total of the $740 million. With the 2.25% increase on July 1st, that's going to go to about $65 million, which is less than 10% of the $740 million. Then we're going to have the federal contribution of the Lil debenture and the financing restructuring. That'll be about $150 million. All those other costs are going to be Hydro's operations, dividends, those sorts of things. All that's going to happen. If Hydro's costs go up, then we just have to use more of our dividends to address that total $740 million. So the $740 million is the number, and the 2.25% for customers is the number that they would, and this year it's less than 10% of the costs of that asset.
So if you
All good?
If you break ground on something new between now and 2030, how does that
You,
play into
you,
that?
you don't pay for it in rates until it gets commissioned. Kind of like the same thing we just talked
Right,
about. This project is, we were spending money, for quite some time as a province, and we started paying for it once it was commissioned. Now, we actually have to pay the bills, right? So obviously, we're paying the bills, and the accountants will say, we got to borrow the cash for that, and we have to finance all that. So we're still expending money. It just doesn't go into the customer's rates. That's the difference.
All good? Thank you, folks, for your time.